Okay,
Okay,
well, then let's call the meeting of Jackson County Board of Adjustment, June 23rd meeting to order and.
may I ask for a favor before you even get going on the agenda?
Yes,
Could I ask for an amendment to the agenda, just in the order of what we're doing? Could
okay,
I ask you to amend, and move up the zoning ordinance update project, information? It's number 7, if we could move that up to, number, where number 3 is, so right under number 2, and then keep the order going after that.
okay, so do we want to do that and make these people wait?
It's very brief, and it has to do with, what the future would look like for campgrounds moving forward.
Okay.
It's what was presented to the zoning commission last week.
Do we need a motion on that or,
To amend the agenda, you would.
okay, so. Do I hear a motion to amend the meeting agenda?
Can I ask you a question? What, you mean this number 7 zoning ordinance update project presented by Laura? That's going to be very brief.
We're gonna do that part of it, and it's the only thing that's in it. We thought she was gonna be here, but she's not. But the only thing that's in it is the, towards the end of your packet.
Yeah.
The revised campground definitions and regulations as, as was agreed to move forward for the zoning rewrite. And I thought it was probably a good spot to move it up to. I mean, we don't have to, that's quite up to you guys.
But this hasn't been adopted.
It has not been adopted. But if you wanted to know what that looked like before you rule on this case, but we don't have to. I wanted to leave it up to you guys.
I would be in favor of just keeping the agenda the way it is.
Okay,
That's just one out of 3.
No, I agree with you, because if it's not in effect yet, one would be
it's
interesting.
not,
We have to live by today's rules.
absolutely.
Okay, so then we're just gonna move on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first business of order here of our agenda is to call roll call.
Pete Fish,
Here.
John Arns,
Here.
Daryl Ford,
Here.
Mike Nicholson is absent and excused. Dave Kendall is absent.
Okay. Second is, piece of business on our agenda is approval of the meetings of minutes of May 27, 2025. So have you guys read the typed up minutes?
I have. I have no objection. I guess I would move that it will be approved.
So we have a motion, we have a second,
I'll second the motion.
motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's see, agenda number 3 is work session, continuation of tabled public hearing. And Daniel Sargent, special exception number 25-05. On establishing a 6-site campground for personal use. And if I remember right, we tabled that, looking for guidance from the health board,
The health department.
health department.
Yeah, and, I knew she was reaching out to Daniel about, about that. And you two had a conversation, correct?
Right.
Okay, can I let him take it? Cause she's been out all week and I know only a portion of this.
Well, we closed the public hearing,
Mhm.
but also.
Yes, we did.
We want to open that up. Do we need a motion to do that?
I don't know that if you have questions of the applicant, that you've opened up the public hearing, that you're just calling on the applicant.
Okay, so we're asking for some information, what's going
Want me
on.
to come up here?
Sure.
No, I'm Daniel Darkin. What was the lady's name again?
That was Elizabeth Townsend.
Elizabeth, I talked to her, and I talked to a couple of my buddies at plumbers about, the issue was, we talked about taking campers and dumping to a septic system that I had. I changed my mind not to do that.
Okay.
They recommended me, they said it would probably work just fine, but if there was ever an issue, who was gonna pay for it? Come back to me. So I decided I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be just like Whispering Meadows, where there's no dump site there. You have to take your camper and come into town and dump it, or wherever they normally take their camper to dump. So that's where we were at on this.
So that issue's off the
That
table.
issue's off the table. We're not even gonna do that.
You fellas got any questions for him?
I don't believe so.
It's,
Good. Okay, so the public hearing's still closed and any discussion?
May I?
Go ahead.
One thing I would like to do, or just recommend, if you guys were gonna approve this, I would approve it on condition that this was gonna be allowed by the health department. Then know that they've decided not to provide on-site dumping. That would just be one of my recommendations for a conditional approval.
So the condition is what again?
That the Board of Health, or excuse me, that the health department would sign off on the fact there's no on-site dumping.
You mean they would have to give their approval that there is no dumping?
That would be a one recommendation.
But would they even do that? I mean, if
Would they
Mr.
approve it?
Yeah, if Mr. Sargent is saying, I'm not gonna allow dumping,
Right,
I don't know that the health department has anything
do we
to.
have a copy of our ordinance on here at all? I was gonna get into our current ordinance, trying to think if I had this part of their original packet.
You went to our website.
I need just a moment if you guys will allow me that.
Take your time.
And in the meantime, Mr. Sargent, I have a question. Can I ask Mr.
Go for it.
And I don't know, these are my notes from the last meeting and I'm looking at my notes and it says exterior lighting question mark. I don't know what I don't know why. I wrote
Instead of
that.
what?
Exterior lighting question mark. This is a note I had to myself and I'm wondering why I wrote that. Do you plan to have any exterior lighting?
just my pavilion's got lighting, but no spotlights, no nothing else.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts, Pete?
How much should be shared publicly?
Okay, so one of the definitions for special exception use in A1 is the privately operated recreational lodges, campgrounds. And then what steps are being taken to minimize adverse effects on the proposed, anyway, minimize the effects on the environment. Let me get to definitions. campground definition, an area providing two or more spaces. Two or more travel trailers, camping trailers, or tent sites. For temporary occupancy with the necessary incidental services. Sanitation is one of the things that's in the ordinance. And recreation facilities to serve the traveling public. So here it's saying that there will be provided sanitation. So whether you want to look at, they're providing their own or any conditions you wanted to put into place to assure that they were meeting the standards that the health department would have.
Are you, is that what you're reading from?
Yes,
Is that how it
sir.
works?
Yeah, I could pull it off online. I could blow it up for you.
Half line, so you need to.
So that's, we are working on that going in the future because that's just not a great definition. It doesn't give much detail of what we expect out of that.
Can I say something?
Go for it, okay.
So what I'm looking at doing is pretty much the same thing as Steve Tebby at Whispering Meadows. He's got several campsites for motorhomes, campers, and he doesn't have sanitation, water, any of that there. You have to take your camper and come down and dump it.
Steve Tebby's probably charging.
Right, he is.
Yeah, so he's a business.
Okay,
You're saying you're not going to be a business.
I'm not charging.
I mean, this is just for your
Just my
friends
friends
and
and family.
family,
Right.
so it's a little bit different
Okay.
in my opinion. As far as the septic, I don't know, John, I don't know if this makes sense to you, but he has already said that it's not an issue for his property now, because the people that he's invited in are gonna take it with them.
I agree. I mean, I'm leaning towards, I have an open mind. I haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm leaning towards granting this exception, but I would impose several exceptions. That's my first, and one of them, I think, would be that there be no septic dumping.
Right.
He's already
And that's,
into that, and
Right.
we've just put that into one of the conditions of the special use
Right.
exception.
I agree.
And whether it complies with this definition or not, I don't know, this is, in my humble opinion, relatively vague. It says with necessary incidental services, comma, sanitation. Well, I don't know that there's anything necessary if
They're taking it.
they're taking it somewhere else.
Well, and I also believe that definition isn't necessarily completely applicable to what we're doing here, because the last few words, serving the traveling public.
Yeah, and
That's not what we're doing.
I agree. It's, I mean,
It's.
that's a hybrid animal that doesn't apply to this, because this is a, yeah.
This is kind of obsolete from when the original ordinance was written in 1976. I would almost venture to guess that this part of the original ordinance was never touched. And back in 1976, what were campgrounds for? The traveling public, for the most part.
So for this case here, if someone does make a motion,
Yeah.
put that in as a condition that they take it with them. Or I don't know how to word that, but,
Well, I think we just say that we're granting the special exception. Subject to these conditions, and one of them is that there will be no septic dumping
right.
on the premises. Then that pretty well defines it with them. I mean, they can't dump it there.
So there was some other concerns raised by the audience the other night, and they're in our minutes. So if I can go back and kind of look at them again here, so then. So. I'm not finding it. Okay. There were good things, but the ATV business, I mean, that's a law enforcement. If there's
Right.
problems with drunken driving and whatever. I think that should be handled there. That we can't say that, and,
Well, really, the majority of these concerns are law enforcement type
it seemed.
concerns, not,
Yes.
we no control over that.
So. I think another concern was, a timeline for camping, starting and stopping of what month?
I said May 1st to October 31st. If we can't, when it's cold.
So I think that should be a condition. We'll put that in, and the other condition could be, that, this is for the applicant and his wife. If, a child becomes the owner, it needs to be reapplied for
Okay.
And
or sold.
any previous or any subsequent owners.
Right.
Okay.
I agree,
Transfer the property.
yeah.
Um, and I guess you've already said this, but I would be in favor of making it a condition that there are no commercial campsites. And meaning that you would accept no payment or other consideration for this. This is indeed for your families and family and friends. There were only two other things that I had in my notes that seem to resonate with me a little bit. If somebody has cattle on the other side of the fence, blah, 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 or may hope to build a house there. One of them was gonna be, like, whether you would be amenable to having some sort of reasonable quiet hours, like 10 or 11 at night until 6 or 7 in the morning.
It should be fine.
And the other would be, I don't know, how long would you expect people to be camping there at a time?
Probably just 3-4 days, whatever,
Like-
if it's a holiday
A
weekend.
week or less?
Right. Now, personally, my camper is probably gonna be there.
I
I live there,
Yeah, I think that's nothing, right? You can have your camper.
but everybody else.
As far as I'm concerned, forever, right? I guess I would be inclined, again, stating my personal opinion, to have exceptions that other campers, invited campers, camp there for a week or less at a time. And that there be an understanding that of quiet hours, and maybe we could talk about what would make sense. I just off the top of my head came up with like a Sunday night through Thursday night from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. And Friday and Saturday night into the next day would be 11 at night until 7 in the morning.
That should be fine.
Does that sound too crazy?
No, it'd be hard to enforce. Who's gonna enforce it except for the neighbors?
Right. And yeah,
And it hasn't been a problem. They brought it up as a concern, but it's not been a problem.
I would agree. And I think it's not self-regulating. It would be up to somebody to have to complain. But it just, it allows this board a hook that if 5 years from now, things are maybe a little bit different, maybe there's another house there or whatever, I don't know, the cattle population grows. And your friends start having big fireworks expeditions in the middle of the night. Then if they complain, if it was a big enough problem, then it could be brought back to the board and your special exception could be revoked. But I agree, nobody's gonna call us at 11 o'clock at night and say,
It's gonna be a sure.
hey, would you make them shut up? Because they're not gonna be able to get hold of me.
Right.
That's anybody else.
Well, we see that in past experience. If we
Right.
put it down, it gives the board or the zoner administration, some teeth to regulate it if it gets out of control,
Right. That was my only thought,
which probably is not going to,
which
but
probably is not gonna happen.
so.
But if somebody else that was complaining a month ago says, how come you guys didn't listen to us? I would like to be able to say, well, we did,
We addressed it.
we did, we addressed it. If it's a problem, then, you know, whatever. I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think those are all good. Agree with that.
With your further explanation, yes, I do agree, because, you know. 2 months ago, we had one sitting here that we can't do
Right.
a damn thing about,
Right.
frankly, and. We should be able to do something about it, so.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
a lesson to
we've got a
me.
bunch of hooks on here, but,
It was a lesson to a lot of us.
sorry. Yeah, it's.
Okay, so John, are you making a motion?
Yeah, I would be happy to. I would move that special exception sought by Mr. Sergeant, Dan Sargent.
Yep.
Be approved with the following conditions attached. One, this special exception is being granted only to Dan Sargent. And can be sold, gifted, or inherited. Number two. There are going to be no commercial campsites, meaning that Mr. Sargent will accept no payment or other consideration. For the campsites, these are for his family and friends. Number three, the camping will be seasonal. Running from, as he sees fit, from anytime from May 1st through October 31st. Number four, there will be no septic dumping on the premises. And number five, Mr. Sargent will enforce quiet hours Sunday through Thursday from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, and Friday and Saturday from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. I guess in one more that, and that would be that the campers are not going to be camping for more than 1 week at a time at a stretch.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second.
Do we need to define quiet time? Certainly, we're going out there with that metering,
That's a good point.
or is it a term that's have a general understanding?
It's, I'm sure it's subjective.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. I don't know how to deal with that. I really don't. Right, without setting,
Because we don't have a noise ordinance out there in this area, so.
you know, I guess we could say that, there would not be during the quiet hours, there would be no, for instance, fireworks or excessive noise. And I don't know how to say it any better than that, you know? I don't know.
Yep, things well said. And I get what Pete's saying, how do you define
Yeah.
that, but, I don't think there's a real good way, Pete.
No, I don't either. But again, it's an opportunity to revisit
Right,
if the neighbors come in with, you know, have sheriff reports from
right.
loud noises or such, or some, I don't know, but. Cause I don't really care.
So we have a motion on the table.
No second motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, motion with an aye. Aye. 3 ayes.
just get with us, Dan, and we can, get that, occupancy certificate issued for that use.
Okay.
Okay,
Is there anything I need to do other than just have a certificate or?
no, and then, adhere to the conditions of the,
Right.
we'll also have a notice of judgment. That'll go out to you. That'll be part of your occupancy certificate.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
thank you.
Thank you all. This is an education. I've never been to a board meeting before. Thank you much.
All right, continuing on, we'll go to agenda number 4. Public hearing at the request of Brian and Ashley Steinis. Application asks that Brian and Ashley Steinis be granted special exception number 25-6, requesting a reduction in their required rear setback no closer than 13 feet in C1 district. So Lori, you have anything to let us know first about this, or?
No, Brian put a lot of work into this, though. I'll commend Brian for that. He has, had a retracement survey done on this property, just so he knows where his lines are. And, here, let me just, I'll pull the map while we're, getting to this. He already has basically two mini storage units on site. These are larger units than what he's proposing to build. Oops. This one is only gonna be 28 by 60 that he's looking to put up.
105.
I'm sorry?
105. 28 or 105.
Oh, I thought you had in here 28 by 60 in your application, Brian. Oh, I beg your pardon. I was looking at the rear.
I drew that. You got the pictures that I drew?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I looked at the north lot line and saw that 60.
Yeah, because it's, the setback is up.
And
Yeah,
Brian, would you, yeah, please consider.
Should have been back. Can you pull that up, I can?
yeah, working on it. I got sidetracked with,
I drew this, so this ain't up to scale.
so I'm putting up the map.
Go for it.
There's already a storage building there.
Yeah, so there's this building, the picture doesn't, it's the same, there it goes. So this was actually one building, I had to step it down here because the elevation of the lot, and then this was the second one I built. But we have no idea, we can't find how long ago this was, but this was an old road, it's 30 feet wide. So, and that I bought it on this part, but the state has it on this part, so where them concrete blocks are, this is where the fence is. And the previous owners maintained it, I've maintained it, I still maintain it. I had it resurveyed to make sure that this pin, and all the pins are up to date and everything.
Who's your surveyor?
Is it from Preston? Dwayne, is it Dwayne?
Dwayne Jacobs.
Dwayne J.
So about where you putting this building at?
Right here, I was gonna pull it. Do you have that picture? Can you pull that up here? That's right here.
And let me see if I can rotate it on here.
There you
But you want me to go back to
go.
the
The one I actually drew.
Oh,
There. Okay, so here's the existing building. this is that old road right away that comes through here. This is actually the state's property. This line here, dark line, is the 30 feet. This in between here is the 25-foot setback. So of the 105 feet that I was gonna build the building, 60 feet of it is at the 25 feet. So we have
The
those
60 feet furthest to the right.
from, this is this is already my property to the right towards Highway 52 to going east. So basically be this back 45 feet would be where I would need, so like the first,
An exception.
yeah, so the first 30 feet of it, I would need like 7.5 feet. And then down here is where I would actually need the 12. And the reason I actually need it is so the building can sit consistently with the other buildings and not have to be offset at an angle, being a major intersection. I want it to be in line with everything else. Can you go to the next page?
Can you explain again where on your drawing at the very top, it
Yes.
says tree planting, that's somebody else's, right?
The states, I was gonna have her go to that picture so I can show that to you if you don't. One more. Okay, so this is the state's walnut, tree planting. So in this picture, it just shows this will actually be the end of the building. So I'm actually, it's like 22 feet from the end of the building, actually to the end of the tree line where the road kind of right away is maintained. And my building would stop back behind that. That way I can still maintain all this and get this. This is some kind of, I don't know what that is, but the state wanted me to leave it some kind of endangered plant thing. They wanted to leave that there. So this is back behind the tree planting, so it's not gonna block any traffic from 362nd Springbrook Highway and the intersection of 52, so I'm actually still back behind there yet. That's what the tree planting is the state's walnut plantation.
It's a what?
Walnut plantation, they planted long time ago.
Okay, so, on your drawing, it says tree planting, and then there's a line and it says fence line. And then underneath that, you've written, this is 30-foot old road fence is the north line above, this has been maintained by me since purchase.
Yeah.
So has that old road ever been abandoned?
Yeah, it's been abandoned way before anyone I could find knew. And the only reason I know,
So as far as you know, you own it,
no,
No.
you don't?
no, because if you look on the one more up, sorry. Nope, down. Okay, here, yeah. So here it's actually, so this is ours, and then this comes down at the angle. There is a shortcut gravel road just above this. We don't know if it was the old road from then. I cannot find nothing anywhere to show, but it's exactly 30 feet on this corner. And it's exactly 30 feet on the end of this. So that's why we're just, and maybe we're assuming it's a road, but this is my property that goes with this. When I bought this property, I had to buy it in 2 parcels. Because of that 30
So
foot
so
split.
you bought property above the road?
No, it's right here.
Can I go to
I
the,
can't see where you're pointing.
can I go to the map?
Yeah,
That's that little sliver piece.
Let me go to,
I thought that little sliver piece was the 30-foot road, no?
It is, but on the, when they surveyed it, it's 1 point, like when I pay taxes on like 1.62 acres and 0.4 acres. So it's actually, it was separated off the original farm at one point. So now it's, I actually have it as 2 pieces combined as one.
so this right here, he's looking to build right where my cursor is. This is the area he's gonna butt up against. He does not own that, but he wants to be no closer than 13 feet
Okay.
from this property line.
And as far as we know, nobody owns that? then?
Yeah, it's the
The
state.
state
Oh,
owns
the
it.
state.
They just have, they have their fence in line with this.
Okay.
Yellow blue line, they have their fence right here, right behind north of them blocks. They have a fence there. So it actually looks like, when you look at the property, it looks like mine, but it's not.
I got you, okay.
So that's why there's, my drawing is confusing, because there's the fence, this is actually the property line, that's why there's so many lines on my drawing.
Okay.
To explain it, so this is, where the fence is at, the current fence right now, then 30 feet is here, and that's where my pins are, and then I went another 25 feet, so actually on my drawing, there's 3 lines,
The
so.
concrete blocks are on state property.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, and this has been. Since I can remember, it's been Cornfield by Wayne Kiefer and then Lauren Ambrose had, I bought it from Lauren, it was always like that, I've talked to the state and. They don't have. We maintain it, otherwise the brush gets 20 feet high.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so this would be the same driveway, so we leave the same driveway here, so everything would flow through like this. These buildings run in a straight line to the Springbrook Highway because Highway 52 is somewhat crooked. And this whole road is 30 feet in order to get the buildings straight, so it looks good. I want it in line with this down here, so everything's in a straight line to Springbrook Highway, instead of having to turn it at an angle, it wouldn't look very good. And then that's the end of the tree plantings right here, basically where the county or state right of way is, but the building would be back behind. That state tree planting, so it wouldn't block no traffic, it wouldn't change anything really as far as that goes. And there's 90, I think it's 90 feet.
Oops, sorry, Brian.
That's all right. There's like 90 feet from the end of the building to the right of way, where we can backfill it, shape it to where we can keep it mowed and all that stuff at all times, like we do in front.
From that building to there were, yeah, that's here by 90.
And this is zone commercial?
Yes, sir.
Really?
Yeah, he went through rezoning in 2022.
Oh, so you did that.
Is this a list of the neighbors that got notice?
Yes.
Living in Gilbert. 3730.
Let me-
That's Osco.
Yeah, two here.
Any objections or response from any of these?
I didn't hear from anyone on this case.
About the state of Iowa.
I did not hear back from them at all. Or the Army Corps of Engineers.
Oh, is that why you have USA here?
Yeah, we have a better address, or is that all we got?
And the only access to these, will be off of the Springbrook.
362nd, yep.
Yeah,
The two-
off 52,
No.
no access, right?
No, when we went through all that, they wanted it off of the county road. Yeah, I got two driveways, what runs right here. This was a pre-existing driveway, and then I filed for with Jaden for this culvert driveway.
And just so you know, I did have Jaden go out there and that he's our county engineer. I had him take a look and line up where the stop bar, he was talking about the stop bar. He said he had no issues with any site distance or anything like that.
What did you say? What did you say? Stop bar?
Stop bar,
Distance,
is that what, that's what I'm sure this is what he called this line where, you know, the stop sign's here and you don't
Oh,
go
I
over
got you.
that threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he called it a stop bar. was what I told him.
Okay.
So he was looking to make sure the building didn't obstruct.
Yes, I asked him to take a look at that,
and that's why I made sure it was back behind that tree plant.
and which is right here.
Over a little bit more. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Do you keep this building lit? Keep lights out there? Their electricity?
To the poles here, there is. We didn't put it on there because I just didn't want to have to deal with any funny business. We got like solar ones that we keep just for people going in and out of there, like the deputies all sit down there, Bellevue cops all sit down there all the time.
But no big bright light.
No, I didn't do that. What was Miller, the one that retired? Miller, the one that was on the road department, that Jaden.
Oh, Mueller, yeah,
Yeah,
was it Chet?
No.
No. I know where he lives.
So do I. Anyway, that was one of his concerns was he put a big bright light on the side of the building. It's gonna, trip with all the trains and cars and trucks and all that, and they didn't. So we didn't even at that point, we just said, we're not even doing it.
Especially at the intersection.
So basically what they are is, and I actually took them down because I can't find good ones. They're just solar ones we put on all four corners of the building, so someone don't rip the side of the building off. But they really ain't nothing, Nothing down there.
And this is how many units?
12 by 20. You know, it'll be the same, everything same color, same steel, same doors, everything's a whole. Whole same deal. Yeah, and that way, my
Same height?
shorter.
Sure.
Yep, these here. So basically, this is 16-foot sidewalls, and then there's a 4-foot wall here, because like I said, I had to step down for elevation, a 4-foot wall here, and then these are 14-foot, then I had another step down, and these are 14-foot, but these would be 12-foot tall here to the sidewalk. 4-12 pitch,
Okay.
and then basically, all of this here, how I reshaped this. I talked to the county ahead of time, they come down when I did it, when I had the crawler down there, just so it don't obstruct anything, we just got it gradual enough so where we can mow it. Now I'll do the same thing here, this will be the same as this here, where we can mow that, except that. Whatever kind of shrub that is, they wanted to keep.
You guys got any more questions for Brian? No? Yeah, go.
Maybe go for Lori, but. It's on commercial. Does the size of the building have any impact because it's incorrect in your report?
I was just reading through that. I'm gonna. John, help me out here. I'm gonna say no. Our public notice, when it went out, it was. You're working on the setback, not the size of the building. So. My thought is, the ask is still correct. They're asking for, the setback of the building to be no closer than 13 feet to the rear property line. Do you want to do me a favor? I'm gonna have her run upstairs real quick. Would you go get that public notice?
So now I know it's public hearing, you're talking about,
The notice of public hearing,
isn't that what you had that?
To the.
hang on here, is part of that in the front. That one, okay, so let's see what that says.
It doesn't say anything about size of building.
It does not. So it's only asking, it's only saying setback no closer than 13 feet. So we're covered on that.
And 13 feet is to the edge of the eve of the building,
The closest point of the building to the property line,
all that.
which is usually an eve or a gutter.
So do we have anybody else opposed to this application here? No? Any other opposition to this, or?
No, I didn't have any phone calls. I didn't have anyone express any concerns. Either negative or positive, so.
Okay, you guys got any more questions? Don?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing on this matter, which is, is it? And number 25-06.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing
We have
on
a second
I'll second it.
motion. All in favor, motion with an aye.
Aye.
Any discussion? Well, looks like he's went through and talked to everybody that he needs to talk to, so as long as the measurements and the survey are correct.
You know, I guess I have one question. I asked Lori if she had heard any complaints from anybody. Have you talked to any of your neighbors? Do you know of any complaints from any of your neighbors?
No, I went to talk to them.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah, when we built the original ones, I went and talked to them all ahead of time, the only neighbor to the north, I go back.
Yeah.
The neighbor to the north would be Tim, or Tom Frederick's daughter, they did all of our hydraulic work for us. They had along here when we dug in there, this was a steep bank and it was washing, I just made a deal with them, I told them what I'll do is I'll dig this all back out, I'll put an 8-foot high wall there, I'll re-put their whole fence in for them, and I'll backfill this all with clean rock. And she said, if we do that, we can do whatever we want, we need anything called, we actually access their property to use it, and this is Lauren, who I talked to before, that's who I bought the property from.
Who?
Lauren Ambrose.
Yep, yep.
And then Larry Kilberg would be, is he's up here across the gravel road, owns the hillside along the state park. I did not talk to. Like, well, the Fish and Wildlife, I didn't talk
Yeah.
to, or the DNR, I didn't talk to some of the DNR people, but they're none of the ones that can make a decision, you know, so.
Right, but they've been made of, what they should know it, so.
They were down there burning it off, cause their fire actually got on the mine, and I was sitting there talking to them when I was actually down there, and they knew what I was doing, but they were probably just employees. But they're none of the people that you would have sent the letter to, I talked to on the state side.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, I don't have to.
I don't either, Greg, sorry. It's already zone commercial. So,
Make a motion to grant special exception 2506.
Second.
so we have a motion and a second. Do you have a timeline on completion?
Are we done by September?
And what we're gonna put, make that a condition. You make that a condition, Pete,
Yes, let's make a condition that it will be completed by
December.
December.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor, motion with an aye. Aye. Motion carried.
We're good, thank you.
Do you want to start your zoning permit application online? Or actually, because you might already have an account, so it'd be pretty easy for you.
Yeah, that sounds good, right?
Okay, maybe your wife can do it. You're a frequent flyer, we need to get you onto that. Well, you got kids.
Thank you.
We'll see you later, Brian, thanks.
Have a good night.
Meeting agenda number 5 is going to be public hearing at the request of Luke and Sarah Mowbray. Mowbray?
Yep.
Okay,
Mowbray, yes.
and, so this is special exception from Luke and Sarah. At 14777 Bernard Road. Application be granted special exception number 25-07. To allow the division of approximately 1.2 acres from the existing parcel located within A1. Where a minimum of 2 acres is required.
Yes, there, sorry, I didn't get that to you earlier.
Laura, you got anything on this to start us
Did
with?
she give you one of these that kind of had a visual of what we're
Okay,
looking at?
yeah,
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
So, Andrew Prosciutto is our buyer. This property comes from a split a few years back. Bonnie Prosciutto to our north is his mother. There ended up a person in between our property and there. He sold out and we bought it. He had made the garage that they had on the other side of the driveway into a home. So we took it and finished it. Our daughter lived there for a while. She's moved out and we're looking to sell. So the reason that we're asking for the exemption is because we want to get away from having an easement through her driveway. And we have a 7-acre cornfield in the back. If you look at the picture, if you see my grain cart right there, so there's a pretty extreme elevation change. And in order to get equipment back and forth, we've got to move to the west side of that grain cart and draw the line, and I will take our fence out, which is behind the grain cart, widen that out, and I will be able to make some hay in there and then get back in to pick our corn and things like that on the rest of the property that's over to the east.
I'm not sure I understand this. The 1.191 acres that says Brandon on it. That is what,
Yeah, so it was just a screenshot and it says the township there.
oh, got it, okay, I got you.
We would like to sell the 1.198.
Yeah, so when we bought it, it was an 8 acre parcel split into two with that building there that you see.
How many acres does Prosciutto have right now?
She's got 2 acres there to the north. Their plan, I believe, and Andrew might be able to chime in there, is to join the two later on. I think he travels right now. I don't know what Bonnie's plan is, but they were thinking that they would put the two together later on, but he can't do that right now with his financing.
So you need to, you need to keep this line to the west
Right.
as much as where you propose it, so you can get around
Yes.
these trees to get to this field.
Right, so this cottonwood right here,
Yeah,
from here to here is probably 40 foot of elevation, so it's an extremely deep ravine that runs back through here. So it would be, it would be quite a bit of work to try to build that up if we went all the way out to the 2
and there's
acres.
no other way to get there.
No,
Not bad.
so we own 38 acres here right now. There's a small road that you can almost get through with a pickup down by the level B, but you can't get any equipment through it. You can't go around because Schnorr's property is to our rear and that's pretty extreme.
Yep.
So really our only avenue would be, we'll take this right here and open it up. And then, so where our driveway is, I've got a path cut. We're just gonna go ahead and keep this paddock here in hay, and we'll be able to just drive through that paddock to get back there.
So you own this down below,
Right,
and then how about that up there? Is that,
and this is ours, right?
that's yours?
This
Yep.
is all part of that parcel that he's wanting to split out. So they're looking to take about 1.1,
1.19.
Yeah,
1.19.
right in there, it'll give Andrew a yard here for what he's doing. I will cut a fence in there because we'll probably start to run maybe some, a couple of cattle back on the field in the fall.
And how, where your grain cart is, what does that, where's the road? Where's your access going?
So there's a
Yeah.
gate right here.
Okay,
There isn't, so I cut all that to hay right now because we come through her driveway and then, so all of this is hay right now.
oh, but that would be an access lane for you then.
Right, yeah, she's been, Bonnie's been great about allowing us to come down her
You have
driveway.
a legal easement to come off the highway.
We
through there?
do not. Right now, I think it was more of just a handshake, but we own just that edge of her driveway. So it's kind of messy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and you can see, we don't worry too much about it. I mean, they're mowing this and it's their yard and we just really trying to do right by them as well and not have an easement and have all that. We thought about, coming down here.
Right.
Don't wanna add, but I do have hay up in here and cleaning it up and it's really just add more money to them.
So how far would you have to come to make it legal?
So if we
You
went,
squared it.
yeah, we would almost have to come all the way down into here. It would almost make a square.
And not that it can't be removed, but we do have a permanent fence on the property line which would, you know, we'd have to take out.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
the fence follows, there's an old road bed right in here. And the fence follows this, we have a corner post here. And run, and that's all sectioned off into 4 paddocks that we've run the pigs through. We've got the pastured pigs that. It's all lined with red oak, so clean up the acorn.
Okay. Is there any more questions?
What have any of the neighbors said?
I heard from, Mrs. Tracy today. And she just had questions because she didn't understand what was going on. After I explained to her that it wasn't changing any property lines that bordered up against her property. She understood then that there was no issues, because she was concerned there might be fence issues. And I'm like, no, we're looking at where the old garage that was converted into a house. And she's like, oh, well, so after she understood what was going on, she had no concerns.
And I mean, it's already, you know, a house with a well and a septic, so there won't be any changes to the property except, you know, the property line.
So your property has a well and septic right now? And then prosciuttos have a well and septic also, right?
And I mean, somebody else was living in there for several years
And
before we purchased.
who's your prospective buyer?
But it's
And
not-
prosciutto, her son,
People or right, well,
yep.
I looked on Beacon and Beacon said that prosciuttos had 1.7.
In Jackson County, we're allowed to use, gross acres and not necessarily net acres. And the survey is probably gonna come out right about 2.0, just enough to make the 2 gross acres.
So then you got one across the road there. It's like 1.1.
I looked at that too. And when I looked at that, I didn't go.
How's that happen?
Well, I truthfully, just looking at the legal description on that, I believe that is an old legal that would have happened before we started requiring surveys in 1976 or before zoning. And then the total lot size of that too, yeah, you're right, is under 1 acre. So, or excuse me, just barely over 1 acre. So just looking at the legal, my assumption
It's old.
is old. Cause it doesn't reference a survey or, yeah, it doesn't reference the survey. And then sometimes they turn out to be residuals.
What's that?
What's left over after a survey, like they sold off the farm ground only, and that's what they end up with. And we have some ugly residual parcels out there.
There's. These little properties they can end up being a problem 20 years from now. Cause we've had some. Come back, I'm just saying. So don't think that we're picking on you or nothing.
Sure.
But
Yeah, with them being, I wouldn't want it there either, that's why we didn't do anything with it. With him being, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna join it back together. Because that's the reason we bought it, so we didn't really necessarily want that up there, but with him. It's kind of funny, it's kind of like a place in her driveway. And Will purchased it and lived there for a handful of years, 3 or 4 years. And we were thinking about converting it back, but it was too far, plus we had the investment when we bought it because he had already put in the well and the septic.
So how far is the facing on the east side of the house going to be from where you want to put the property line?
I measured 60 feet off. Which kind of, it landed somewhere in here where I can get our planter and the combine through.
Because I believe that's kind of the last situation we had like this was, his equipment had grown so much over the years that,
Then he couldn't get through and then it was.
yeah, he was gonna quit the house if he took his combine through or something.
That was a bad deal.
And in that one, in that case, he could have made that larger to begin with.
Yeah, because he only sold it with a 12-foot wide easement.
Yeah.
Then he used it as an easement instead of a survey. Yeah, you're gonna be falling about 60 feet away. And could you just give the board information, where does the well and septic?
Yeah,
The drain
absolutely. So, the septic comes down to the drain field right here behind the place. Just right about here is where they did the well. And we went through, when we did it for our daughter and raised the wellhead up and had the septic inspected and made sure everything was good. It's got a new furnace and water heater, all that good stuff.
So could, Prosciutto turn around and resell this property?
Yep, it would be a legally described tract of land. And yes, it would be a legally described tract of land. And I know they took some care into making sure that when they made this ask, that they know when they're doing their survey, that they need that 1 point, they need over 1 acre to be part of that survey. So that their ask to the Board of Adjustment is less than 50% of the required quantitative amount of 2 acres.
There's no other option, you know, that how to get 2 acres out of it, the deal, not without really being.
Right, yeah, we
Giving up
would have
lot.
to change a lot, unfortunately. It's, so I love our property, it's scenic, but so, this old road bed, that's probably 20 foot of elevation right there, so it comes down off of Bernard Road. Comes back up this knoll, drops like 60 feet down into this. And then back up here where, so you can see, we've put in an orchard. And this is all our row crop, and it's just a, you know, it's a little 40-acre hobby farm, and so the plan is we use all of this and this to feed the pigs, and that's our little specialty, and see, it's just kind of a bad situation.
But there's no way along the road there where it's rough, the tree area is.
No,
I'm just asking.
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Or even our driveway was,
it's scenic, that's what we call it.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Or or gaining land, but nothing that's usable.
Well, that's what I was thinking,
Uh-huh.
you know, it's almost ridiculous, I see you drawing lines, and I really appreciate that to give me a better vision of what, but to what point?
Right.
I know one of the, if you guys don't mind, one of the things I talked to Sarah about, and well, when Andrew came in the office too, I talked to him before we talked to the Mowbrys. And, I was like, just buy the whole 3 acres. Well, you know,
Right.
there's some of this going on with everybody, of course, and then too, this is your farm ground. And you don't want to have to lease it back from
Right.
the Navy property owner. And then I understood, and well, one of the things I suggested was this, which gets you about 2 acres. And, well, then we're taking away his access into that back field. So that's, you know, that was one of the options I initially suggested, and then saw really quickly, like, why as a farmer, they didn't want to do that, because they'd be losing access and then having to use an easement. And we all know how ugly easements can be, so I get what they're trying to do here. And believe me, I tried to throw out other options, because this is, I don't like getting to this point if we don't have to.
No, I appreciate, you know, I get it now, what you need to get around there. I didn't realize that at first, that, you know how it is too, John, you need to get access to your field, so I get that, so. I'm just. You know, try to stay within the 2 acres.
If we, frankly, if we could and it was reasonable to them and us, we would, it's just, like you say, it's. The quality of the ground there for what it's gonna be and what they might do with it is just not there.
It's ground, it's our room, plus we make some of these places small, and then first thing they could do in 2 months is come back and want a special exception to get. We're getting too close to the setbacks, they want to build something else and. Okay. So, anything else to add? Okay, so we have any opposition, Lori?
No, we have no opposition. I don't know if you wanna call on. Well, the public hearing's still open. Did you wanna reach out to Andrew to see if he had anything to add, even though he's the.
Who's in speak or?
Yes, he can. That's why I'm asking if they wanna.
Gotcha.
Yeah, most certainly. If he wants to say something, go ahead.
Andrew, do you have anything else to add? If so, please go ahead and feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have much else to add. I mean, other than, you know, down the road, the goal is to combine the property, but well, I mean, my mom's with me right here, the one that owns the 2 acres on the north end. But ultimately, the goal is to combine the two. But I can't fund all of it right now. And with my work situation where I travel 50% out of the year, you know, having this opportunity to go and get a place that is already turned into a house, being able to put my stuff there and then have somebody that can watch the dog while I'm traveling. This is something that works out for me really well. And then with still getting the Mowbrys what they need access wise to their land, that's something where I guess for me, I think it works out well. Right. And that's kind of why we came to the board to get this exception, is to just make it work for the both of us.
Okay, thank you. So. Any other questions for the applicants? I don't repeat. So close the public hearing. So we're gonna vote. Got a motion, a second. All in favor, motion, aye.
Aye.
So the meeting's public hearing is closed. Any discussion? Well, I'm just gonna say right off the bat that I'm a big proponent of, I'm not even sure 2 acres is large enough to be split in our county, but that's my opinion. I just said it, and said it a lot of other times too, so. At this time, he does have a reason. And, I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think if mom didn't own the property next door, I'd be right there with you, but. Whether it happens or not, I guess I could make myself feel better than saying that, yep. Someday it'll all be one, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different case this way where the adjoining property owners trying to combine it, but it probably will never get combined. And then down the road, it gets sold as a separate property, and then there will be an issue, I don't know, but if they do, it'll be an access issue too. And they'll have to deal with that if they do try to sell it, so.
Okay, where is the access to the house then?
There,
They share the same engines.
Okay, but if Andrew wasn't buying it. And if his mom didn't want somebody to have access, they wouldn't have access?
is there I didn't pull out a survey or anything, is there an easement agreement between the two properties?
Not today.
Okay.
Well, really, right now, you don't have access to this property, only from the backside.
Yeah, right.
Legally.
Right.
We think, right?
Yeah, as far as you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
And the potential new buyer does have access to it.
No, he doesn't.
Why doesn't he?
Only because his mom is
Well,
staying, yeah.
But can they legally landlock somebody? Cause the way it sounds
No.
like there's a huge ditch here.
landlocked.
You cannot sell land that is landlocked, but the prescriptive easement would come from them. I mean, they would be the ones that would have to allow whoever owned that house access to it if the mom cut off access. Because they're the ones that are selling the house, but then no longer has access, legal access.
If they were selling to a different buyer.
Yeah.
And they have access, they could access from the south, or they could put a new driveway.
There you go, remedy. There you go, yeah, that's true.
But as it stands. They've been getting access over Prosciutto's property just because. Like I said, nothing,
Because they're neighbors.
yeah.
And Prosciutto was the original subdivider, is my understanding back.
Yes.
Was that true?
Yes. So there was 80 acres there. That was the original farm.
So you're selling it back to who you bought it from.
Well, so no, I don't wanna drag them down, but they had a divorce. And,
Well,
yeah,
it doesn't,
yeah,
so
so
store it.
her ex-husband, yeah.
All right, you know, sounds like a great deal for everybody.
know, yeah, it's a deal. I mean, I could even probably go on with it. Even though it's not goes against what I believe, but I don't know about you, John.
I have a lot less experience with the small parcel exception than you guys do. And I've been noticeably silent because I sense that you're struggling with this. And I'm trying to pick up, I'm trying to learn from people who have been around more than me because I'm a newcomer to this board. And I'm
It's
really,
hard for me to give a special exception to reduce the size of a splitting parcel from two, when I think two is too small to begin with.
yeah.
Because it creates problems. And I get it, I think, you know, they could put this back together, but they did develop it and sell it in the past. And if they turn around and he sells that, they come back to the board and want to do something else, but yeah. I don't even play for it. Did you guys wanna?
I won't stand in the way, but I mean, if you want to make the motion, I'll second it.
As far as conditions on this, is there any conditions that we should?
Not that I can come up with,
The survey hasn't been done yet.
no, we just have to make sure that it hits those numbers for the gross acres.
And
Absolutely.
that number is what again?
1 point, no less than 1.1. And the target is 1.19, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah,
So we're shooting for 1.19. Okay.
And that's why when I did the public notice and after talking to Sarah, we agreed no less than 1.1. That way we still kept that 1/10 of an acre buffer to keep it over 1 acre.
Okay.
And also if you do grant, the one condition you're gonna wanna make sure you do is the time limit when by when the survey would have to happen. So that it's not an open-ended.
So what are you saying, the time that the survey is completed or?
You'd have to have a deadline, yes, the recorded would be the completed. So if you want to give them 6 months or a year to have this come to fruition. And if it would go after that, then it would,
Have to come back.
yes,
no, you can't. So go ahead.
I did,
If that's okay.
Go ahead.
I did reach out to Weber Surveying, in Bernard and already spoke with him, and he said that he would wait, to hear back from me, but he could have it done in 30 days.
All right, well, we want to make a motion on this. I think we should go ahead. In my opinion, that's me speaking.
I make a motion to approve special exception 2507. With the provisions that the survey is done and there is in excess of 1.1 acres in the tract of land. And I have no idea what that time frame, is it just a survey or they have to have it recorded and everything?
That's part of that's what completes it, the recording.
So give them 3 months.
I have no idea.
She said,
Remember I bought
30
my
days,
house,
give it
like
3
a
months.
year,
Yeah.
6 months.
For 6 months back. I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this application. All in favor? Motion with an aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, folks.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thanks for bearing with us.
No, absolutely. I'm with you. So if he sells it, we might be buying it back.
Okay, there
We
you
don't
go.
want anybody living there.
It's been a lot easier decision.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, we have.
You know, this is new to me, and I think whoever's gonna be our zoning administrator going forward, you know. I'm hoping she listens. When you're dealing with people. And I think it's with the zoning administrator that these people get a sense of whether their request for an exception is like highly likely, sort of 50-50, or boy, you're really rolling uphill. 1 out of 5 people, I'm gonna be very difficult to convince to let there be a split like this. I mean, I guess I don't know for sure all the problems that can come up, but watch you struggle with this,
I came to the meeting, but deny it.
really.
Absolutely, but then there's only 3 of us here.
Well, boys, wait till next month.
If there'd have been 4th one here, I wouldn't have.
Okay, all right, well,
But I think they come honestly,
yeah,
and they had a reason. I understand why they couldn't go to the east more.
yeah. It helped me that it looks like this might be tied in together at some point. That makes it an easier pill to swallow. But you're right, there's no guarantee that that will happen, you know. The mom dies, and maybe there's a sister that wants her house, and then he wants to leave, and so he sells this house.
Things
And then,
change.
and then everybody's different, you know, and know all new neighbors, and then you're right, then somebody wants to build a bigger house or a different garage or whatever, and then everything has to be an exception.
So, and then what you hope is we're not on the board anymore. A new board has to deal with it, and they said, what were they thinking back in that day?
We try real hard, and Becca knows that when we talk, I try not to get them here. You're gonna have a case this next month, it's gonna be harder than this one. With a something similar. And I tried every which way I could to try to get another option. And,
Okay.
so we don't get to you guys unless they absolutely insist, because they can't or won't make something else happen.
And you don't give them a sense that they
Well-
push over.
Actually, I will. And typically it's good, this is gonna be a hard sell to the board, but you do what you need to do. Or it'll be, I can't predict what the board's gonna do. However, I don't see concerns. But I can't predict the board. So I will, because I'm not gonna say, I don't wanna give them false hope.
Right,
And I'll go the negative before I'll go the positive.
okay.
But there are ones that are coming up that I have
Okay.
tried to. And I do, it's my first thought, buy the whole 3 acres. Well, no, because then they're gonna lose access and, to this crop area, and I try.
Well, we could have pushed them harder to bring that down at an angle along the road.
Whatever.
I agree.
And
I agree.
put some probably not very productive land with that.
Right.
Made 2 acres.
And then they wouldn't have been losing any crop ground.
Right.
Right, no,
And then it's just a question of, can they come together on the price? And that's up to them.
Right.
It's not our problem.
It is, right.
right.
But
And then too, you're getting your minimum 2 acres, but you're getting scrubbed hilly ground that,
it doesn't matter.
right, because it's still
Yeah.
2 acres.
Right, right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, nobody's losing tillable ground. You're not taking tillable ground out of production.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yep.
That wouldn't have been a bad solution. And maybe it was the right one, but at least we moved on.
Okay, items from the public. Anything?
We haven't received anything to present to you guys, and we have nobody else online or in person.
Okay, item number 7, zoning ordinance update project. Laura Carson.
Okay, so we have Laura's notes here, and most of this is changes to what had been made to campground definitions and the regulations. I won't read everything unless you want me to just kind of go through it. And this is more FYI to you guys, since we're seeing more of this come through. That we were hoping to take all this to public hearing for the zoning commission in July. However, that's not gonna happen. Right now, we're looking for the public hearing for the zoning commission to happen in August. And hopefully would be on the Board of Supervisors agenda in September to adopt. When it's all completed. So you saw what our definition earlier, when I showed you the definition of campgrounds online, it was a sentence. That has since evolved. And everything in here is basically new language.
I gotta just speak my piece on this. I really have trouble with these definitions of campground and trying to differentiate between commercial and private. And it honestly doesn't make sense to me.
Okay,
To say a commercial campground is a business that provides designated areas, typically involving a charge for use. Well, if it's a business, it's always gotta involve a charge for use, doesn't it? I mean, I don't get it. And then under the campground for private, it says it's a non-commercial campground, which I don't think tells us anything based on what the commercial campground definition says. It says a non-commercial campground with no more than 2 campsites that shall be for the use of the owner and or tenant only. Well, is that a tenant for a night? I mean, that can be anybody.
I hear where you're coming from. I know what the intent was. It was the owner of the property or the tenant of the property, right,
Like if it's a long-term tenant, but
right.
that's not clear here. I mean, somebody can be a tenant. I'll give you 50 cents to rent a portion of your farm big enough for me to put my camper on for the night. So does that mean that then that's a private campground? I don't know. I'm not satisfied with these definitions.
Okay.
And that's just one person's opinion, but it doesn't give us much guidance. And it wouldn't have given us any guidance with Mr. Sargent, I don't think.
I had to offer,
Yeah, well. I get the difference between a public campground, which is from the state, county, or municipal, I mean, sure, I get that. And then a privately owned campground, but if it's a privately owned campground, it can be a commercial enterprise, or it can be like this guy, well, I don't know, there might be, one of you guys might have mentioned this a month ago. I mean, if I have a farm and I wanna let somebody put their trailer there overnight, I don't get permission from anybody to do that.
And I agree, I think part of that's,
I mean, what the hell? I mean,
looking for a definition here because.
and if my son wants to go home with his family, if they have a camper and pull it on my farm, I'm
Pull up and
and I'm not breaking any rules.
But don't you consider yourself a private campground?
No, I don't.
There.
No. Not at all.
And we got a friend that's getting treated at Iowa City right now, and he got a permit for 30 days. And he's camping out at North Liberty out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's not gonna move his camper for 30 days, and that's I think that's state campgrounds. I mean, they were making a big deal out of it, you know, to sell over 3 days, business like that. But the thing with it is camping, somehow they got these ordinances on camping and nobody takes camping real serious. There's just too much gray area. And we're trying to make something out of what's not really that serious, I don't know. To me, I'm not a camper.
I'm not a camper even. I mean, I do, I am at least a little bit sympathetic to the people, even though I thought they were kind of jerks, the way they went about it, but the people that showed up a month ago. You know, if you legitimately have an agricultural enterprise, that all of a sudden people are going to, on a regular basis, you know, it's not. My son comes home for the weekend with his wife and have a trailer, which they don't, but anyhow. I mean, if this guy Sargent is obviously. I appreciate the fact that he came to the board and made something public out of it. But if there's gonna be people there. On a, you know, regular basis, weekend after weekend, or at least many weekends out of the summer. That's a different deal, I think, you know, that's a different deal. Than just letting your family or friends. Put up a tent in the backyard or, you know, the back 40.
And most people have evolved past the tent these days.
Yeah, right.
And, you
Yeah,
know,
camping is not camping anymore.
no, it's
Camping is,
the glamping.
yeah, right.
It's the, you know, the $100,000, $75,000 trailer.
Buses and, right, huge
Yeah.
RVs and.
Yeah, it's clamping. Camping has evolved since I was a little kid with my grandparents and their slide behind
Oh, yeah,
trailer or
Pop up.
camper. The camper that slid in the back of the pickup and
yeah,
threw a tent out for us kids and that was pretty high tech back in 1968 or 9.
right.
The slide-in camper box. But anyway, we wanted to bring this to your attention.
Okay,
So, and you know, it just talks about conditional uses,
so who's gonna decide on this? Is this the board of supervisors?
ultimately, yes, this has already been to the, zoning commission
Okay.
and they've pretty much approved it.
Okay.
But that doesn't, I mean, your thoughts on this does not. You know, it's still valid input.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, you flatter me.
What?
No.
It is, it'll be shared,
Okay,
it will be shared.
well, you can tell them at least one person thinks, I don't think these definitions between commercial campground and private campground. Give you any usable information. I really don't think so. Yeah.
And anytime you guys wanna look at what is the draft right now. It is on our website. Grab a cold drink and a sandwich though, before you start reading it. It's gonna be about 200 pages when we're done,
Of what's that?
the new ordinance.
Like the whole zoning ordinance? And so, when it becomes so big, that ordinance and all these drafts and all that. And then to make it practical for a citizen board who's not up on 200 pages,
You won't have to be.
who's gonna interpret that for us? And
Um,
help us out?
It's
Are you
actually,
administrator
yes,
or?
and it will be more, it'll be more user friendly. Things are being broke down, they're being tableized. Is that a right word? Is that even a word? Tables are being created that kind of spell things out, what's allowed in this district. How many parking spaces, how much distance, if it's a special, if it's a special exception use or conditional use in that zoning district, it should be easier to navigate than what we currently have. The definitions will be more inclusive. Hopefully, ones that are, usable, that you find value in. But that's where we were lacking with our previous ordinance. Or where we are lacking with our previous ordinance, good direction and definitions. The one thing I know Laura talked about with you guys, I'll just reiterate, the goal is with the new ordinance, we will have to have less trips to the Board of Adjustment. One of the things that's a provision in the rewrite would be an administrative waiver. So on things that the administrator is comfortable with, we'd be able to do an administrative waiver, say, grant a little closer setback to the rear, or, a tenth of an acre or whatever, something we were comfortable with for an adjustment like we're talking here, just something that's like very minuscule. What it would do is it would be a letter from the zoning administrator to any adjoining neighbors. Say they want to put a garage 8 feet away from a side setback where a 10-foot setback in R1 is required. An administrative waiver, instead of sending them to the Board of Adjustment for a 2-acre setback, since it's less than a 50% ask, they could opt to do an administrative waiver. And if a property owners that could be aggrieved agree to it, she can issue the permit. However, if the other property owners won't sign off or just, say they don't like the neighbors, so we're gonna do whatever we can to slow this down, then that would come to you guys. So hopefully this will lessen some of your load.
So with the one tonight, that was the building down in Bellevue, would that have been a waiver?
It's less than 50%. We could have, I do believe that's gonna fit your understanding too. We could have done that one. So, but here's where that might have come into an issue. So one of the owners that would have had to sign off on it, well, 2 of the owners, one would have been the US Army Corps of Engineers because it's right across the street. And the other one being an adjoining property owner being the state of Iowa. We might have ended up here anyway, because they may not have responded. So, any items from the board?
I have none.
Okay,
No.
all right. So, the next meeting will be July 28th.
And you say you have stuff on that agenda already? Fun stuff, right? Yeah, can you give us an idea or?
Yeah. Um, there is a, let me just go to it.
We don't have their application, no,
Oh, we don't? No, we don't.
we have Alden's.
Actually, we don't have that application yet, but it's gonna be a request for a 1 acre or 1.1 acre survey. And here, you're gonna have to watch my little hand signals here. We have a curve in the road. And there's 3 acres in that just north of the curve of the road that's owned by the property owner. However, remember, John, I had mentioned a word before about did I use residual property?
Yeah.
This is one of the ugliest versions of a residual property leftover that I've ever seen. And then talking to the owner, I think from what I can see, they probably had like 6, 7, 8 quarters surveyed into one parcel, into one legal description for whatever reason. And then they started carving out the tillable and selling it to somebody else. So they were keeping the non-crop, the non-tillable acres for themselves. So mind you, they have this 3 acre triangle up on the curve. And then we're gonna drop 500 feet for the rest of that parcel. Over 500 feet before the rest of the tract. So I think we have a 13 acre tract. 10 of it sits north of the road in a corner and the other one's on the other side of the road.
Wow.
It's spell it.
Does Jackson County, like every time you subdivide a property, you don't need to get zoning approvals? Not every time,
Okay.
but when do you need to get zoning?
It's, okay, so
Like
when you do
cut?
when you do a split,
Yep,
that's called a plat of survey.
yep,
So if you have one split
yep,
inside of a 40 acre, you're still in plat of survey. It's after you get that third, the way we use it in Jackson County, is that third or more split in a 40 that falls under 10 acres. So if we have 3 surveys that are 3 acres or 2 acres, that 4th one is hitting minor survey or minor subdivision. And that's gonna,
okay, let's say we start up with 40 acres,
mhm,
split it in half, you have 20/20.
you're
That's
still
one
good.
split, okay? Let's say one of those 20, you're split into 10 and 10. Is that a minor subdivision?
The way we would calculate it, no.
No.
However, I've been looking over Iowa Code 554, 540. I just had it out today. And we're working on rewriting our subdivision ordinance. We're sitting down with the auditor's office, the assessor's office, the engineer's office, and the recorder's office. And we see things that don't work well. And as we're seeing things that don't work well, that we wanna fine tune, and it comes down to the exact question you just asked.
Okay.
Where, when does a minor subdivision start and we have to start getting
Right.
supervisor approval? That's where we were going when we first started with just one of the things that we were looking to change. However, after we've started digging, we're probably biting off more than we had intended. Because we're seeing some other things that maybe have evolved in state code that we want to keep up with. And then we have questions that maybe there's certain things that state code isn't addressing, but we still want to see addressed. And one of those things was, when we're getting into retracement surveys. Let's say Daryl has a tract of land and he and the neighbor aren't sure where the property line is and they do a retracement.
I don't know what that, I've never heard that before.
Basically they're confirming the boundaries. They're retracing the boundary.
Okay,
And typically those are not reviewed by the offices in the courthouse. And they don't, it's not really legal, it's just more of a just showing the property owner where it is. One of the things we're looking at now is like, should we be going through the review process on retracement surveys? Verifying the acres and letting it reflect any new boundaries or any changes in a parcel.
give me an example of where you would use a retracement. Is that where like? Where the property line that the neighbors have understood is the property line is a fence that would not correlate necessarily with.
That could be an example, or just say, I just wanted to sell my lot and the guy that wants to buy it says, well, I want to know where those property lines are exactly, so I know what I'm buying. So I might hire a surveyor to come out and basically retrace or remark my pins,
Well, that's just the same as the survey there.
but they're not changing any boundaries,
Right. They're just resurveying. the
right?
property.
As long as everything's right. But there's some surveys, retracement surveys, well, I'll use an example, one that's kind of been a thorn for us. And it's up in, Spruce Creek, Dressler's edition. Oops.
And while you're looking for that, let me just raise one other question, because I know I'm more familiar actually with Dubuque County than I am Jackson County, even though I've lived in Jackson County for 45 years. But in Dubuque County, at least it's my understanding that they have been very active, or at least were, in making sure that as rural land gets sold, and especially as the parcels start getting smaller and smaller, that they make sure that the person that is dividing the property up understands that the fencing obligations are being passed on to the new purchasers. And that, you know, where you used to have 80 acres and this guy had 40 acres of fence and this guy had 40 acres of fence, but then this guy starts subdividing this up. I mean, you can't force the other neighbor to have to remake like 10 different little sections of fence. And I don't know, does Jackson County, do you pay attention to that?
We do, actually, that's part of our major subdivision
Okay,
is, fence line. And there's a fence line agreement that has to be part of that document, should it become an issue. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head if that's also part of our minor. Gosh, I just think it would be, but I can't.
because it should be, I don't know whether it is not, but it should be.
Anyway, this is and mind you, we don't record retracements, but I've dealt with this property enough, or I can almost draw,
Okay,
draw where we are. I wish I could see this just a little bit better. I'm probably pretty close, but the retracement goes something like this.
that was a pretty good one there.
The retracement goes something like that. And that is not part of a record, it's recorded, because they recorded the retracement. However, the county does not go in and remap that. And this is an approximate, but gives you an idea where our lines are not where we would necessarily have
Wow.
thought them to be.
Wow.
Okay.
And that area right there is notorious for,
Where's this, up in
Issues.
Spruce Creek?
yeah. Here's the marina.
Oh, okay.
Where do you want to build a property?
You built a house.
Oh, you build his house.
He built a house and then he owned that.
It's just sitting out in the street, but he owns the
He's
street.
got to close it. You kidding me?
Or so some lines say and some lines don't, but
Right. And that, that place, there was a lot of concern about that. And, there was a lot of rumors up there, and I don't think that there was a lot of truth to some of the things that people were saying. And just so you know, to the best of my knowledge, when they built that, they stayed within the setbacks of that retracement. They did not, you guys granted it a special exception to come out X number of feet. I can't remember what it was right now. They didn't use it.
Really?
No. The neighbors sent out letters to, got their attorney involved and, yeah, and it's, these owners decided it wasn't worth it, and they made all kinds of changes to their build to try to, pacify the neighbors.
John, you got a new house. Right next to it, you got a little shack.
and it's like 3 feet off the property line.
Wow.
Yeah, cause you can kind of see where the well, actually, this is gonna be this is the monument.
Those were two original properties.
It's probably right about,
Built originally. Very good.
So those monuments were wrong?
no, the monuments are spot on, according to the survey. Here's I believe I'm hitting a monument there. They actually have a concrete monument here and, one over here somewhere, probably right about in here where my cursor is.
So the little building down below, that's what you're referring to as a shack?
Well,
Is
it's a
that-
cabin.
Built cap.
Okay, is that not built on its property?
It is.
It is built.
Everything's shifted. Allegedly, everything's shifted.
Well, how could
This-
it shift?
Well, it's on the mapping and it's where, where there's issues. That subdivision, and if you look at some of our old towns, I know for a fact, just from years ago, Preston. If you look at property lines, there's probably buildings that were built over property lines or where there was assumptions made. But this family also had a survey done, so they know where their property lines are, and so the shape of this guy's is the same, it's just shifted north. So let me see, he has, so if he has 57 feet, oops. It probably looks more like. But yeah, so that's one of the things that we talked about is, actually recording retracement surveys and mapping them with the new information. But you can kind of see where, if we map this, let me say they mapped this one and mapped it with the new information, it might shift everything in here to the west. So we've opened another can of worms, which I've been really good at doing, it looks like in the last 3 years, just, But yeah, what we thought was gonna be something fast and easy, just make some fine tuning, is probably turning in more
So
than
when you're
that.
saying shifting, you're saying that the next property's got 60 feet. So you're moving over 60
You
feet,
might have to,
and then and it just kind of keeps going, because they all think they've got
in a lot of cases.
40 feet, 60 feet, whatever it is. So if the first one is over, then everybody.
Well, I would be real curious to know.
Do you guys,
And I don't know, but I'd be curious to know what the court system thinks about that, because if you go back to when they first started surveying, you know, it was
Right.
meets and bounds and people had actual chains and, you know, and that accuracy compared to satellite mapping are two different critters, but people bought property based on the chains and blah, 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 and they built houses
Mhm,
and they lived there for decades.
mhm.
And if I'm on the Supreme Court, I'm saying they own that property. I don't care what a modern day
Yeah.
satellite tells us.
And,
They own this property.
and
You can't make them move their freaking house.
no, and a lot of times when stuff like that happens, there's a thing called an auditor's plat, or auditor survey rather,
Okay.
where if there's big problems in areas, and I don't foresee this happening anytime soon here. However, there is, if they needed to clean things up, the county could actually order a replat of an area until they start finding where it's correct. Basically, you keep going until the problem adjusts itself out. And then a lot of it turns out to, instead of the actual where it's mapped, but then you take and, oh, there's a legal word for it, and I don't remember what it is, where they're actually using it. Basically, what we think it is, moving it and shifting it, or in this case, but you just keep resurveying until you get to where everything's fallen in place.
And that's just a nightmare.
Oh,
That's just a nightmare.
John, that's why it's not gonna happen anytime soon, more than likely, unless, there was a big outcry.
If everybody's happy, they're not gonna change it.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. So, but yeah, so that was one of the changes that we were looking, and I got off on a tangent, but that's just one of the things we found. So, one of the biggest change I wanted to see made was, a surveyor is supposed to indicate on the survey anytime there's a structure, and I'm doing it off the cuff, I can't remember if it's 30 or 40 feet from the property line, the new line that's gonna come into place. I wanted the language to change to, because it says from the wall of the structure, we measure from the closest point of a structure, whether it's the eave or the soffit to that property line. So I was looking at some easy changes along with the count for the difference between minor subdivision, when that starts over a simple plat survey or plat survey, and where major subdivision comes into play. So. You guys ready to adjourn this thing?
Yeah, and we have a motion to adjourn.
I also move.
Second. All in favor, motion with an aye. If on a farm property, if there's a survey done and it's off, and it's not